All rise. Department 1 of the Superior Court is now in session. Judge Eleanor of England presiding. Please be seated.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Calling the case of the people of the state of California versus Mr. Smith. Are both sides ready?
Ready for the people, Your Honour.
Ready for the defence, Your Honour. Will the clerk please swear in the jury?
Will the jury please stand and raise your right hand? Do each of you swear that you will fairly try the case before this court, and that you will return a true verdict according to the evidence and the instructions of the court, so help you God? Please say, I do.
I do.
I do, 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 I do. Your Honour and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant has been charged with the crime of taking or driving a car belonging to someone else without the permission of the owner. The evidence will show that a 2004 Corvette was stolen on the night of February the 8th. The next day, the defendant was arrested driving the stolen car. The defendant's fingerprints were on the keys that were used to steal the car. The evidence I present will prove to you that the defendant is guilty as charged.
Your Honour and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, under the law, my client is presumed innocent until proven guilty. During this trial, you will hear no real evidence against my client. You will come to know the truth that Mr. Smith was just riding in a car stolen by someone else. After finding out that the car was stolen, Mr. Smith was just trying to do the right thing by returning the car to its owner. Therefore, my client is not guilty. The prosecution may call its first witness.
The people call the owner of the car. Please stand. Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in the case before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your first and last name.
Emmanuel Smith.
You may be seated. So, Emmanuel Smith, where do you work?
I own Martinez Car Sales.
What is the address of your business?
102 Main Street, Martinez.
And were you working there on February the 8th?
Yes, I was.
Was one of the cars you had for sale a 2004 red Corvette, licence number 5CBX239?
Yes.
And did you see that car on the lots February the 8th?
Yes, the car was there when we closed that night.
But was it there the next morning?
No, it was missing when I got to work that morning.
Where were the keys to the Corvette when you had left on February the 8th?
They were locked in the sales office.
And where were they when you came back the next morning?
They were still locked in the sales office.
Did you file a stolen car report with the police?
Yes, I did.
Had you given anyone, including the defendant, permission to take or drive the Corvette?
No, I did not.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Does the defence have any questions? Not at this time, Your Honour. The witness is excused. The prosecution may call the next witness.
The people would like to call to the stand the arresting officer. Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony that you shall give in this case before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your first and last name.
Rosa Brown.
You may be seated, officer. Officer, where do you work?
I have worked for the California Highway Patrol for the past 10 years.
Were you on duty on the afternoon of February the 9th?
Yes, I was patrolling the freeway between San Ramon and Martinez.
Did you observe a red 2004 Corvette that afternoon?
Yes, I did.
What was the licence number?
5CBX239.
Where did you first see the car?
Going north near the exit to the Highway 4.
Why did you notice the car?
It fit the description of the car which was on a list of stolen vehicles.
Did you stop the Corvette?
Yes, I turned on my lights and my sirens and pulled the car over.
Where did you stop the car?
About half a mile before the downtown Martinez exit.
What did you do after the car had stopped?
I ordered the driver to step out and I arrested him.
Did you see the driver here in court?
Yes. The record will show that the witness has identified the defendant sitting at the defense table.
After you arrested the defendant, did you search the car?
Yes.
What did you find?
I found a set of keys in the ignition.
Are these the keys you found?
Yes.
Your Honour, I would like to have these keys marked as People's Exhibit number 1 and ask that they be admitted into evidence.
Does the defence have any objection?
No, Your Honour.
keys will be omitted as people's exhibit number 1.
Officer, was there anything unusual about these keys?
Yes, based on my experience as a highway patrol officer, they look like shaved master keys.
Can you please tell the jury what shaved master keys are?
Yes, they are keys that have been filled down so that they will start all models of type of car. They are used as tools to steal cars.
I have no further questions.
Does the defence wish to ask any questions? The witness is excused. Does the prosecution have any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honour. The people would like to call the fingerprint examiner. Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in the case now before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your first and last name.
Professor John Brown.
You may be seated. So, Professor John, where do you work?
I've been a qualified fingerprint examiner for 10 years.
Have you ever seen these keys before?
Yes, I was asked to check them for fingerprints at my lab.
Did you find any fingerprints on the keys as a result of your testing?
Yes, there were several clear fingerprint impressions.
Were you able to identify the defendant's prints on these keys?
Yes, the prints I found on 2 of the keys were identical to the fingerprints taken from the defendant.
Thank you. I have no further questions and no other witnesses, Your Honour.
Does the defence have any questions?
Yes, Your Honour. As a matter of fact, you also found fingerprints on keys which did not belong to the defendant, didn't you?
That is correct.
To whom did they belong?
I don't know.
Thank you. I now have no further questions.
The witness is excused.
Your Honour, the people rest their case.
The witness is excused. Is the defence rest?
Yes, Your Honour.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I am now going to read to you the law that you must follow in deciding this case. To prove the crime charged against the defendant, the prosecution must prove 3 things to you. First, that the defendant drove or took a car belonging to someone else. Second, that the owner did not give the defendant permission to drive or take the car. And third, that the defendant intended to take away the owner's right to have the car either permanently or temporarily. If each of you believe that the prosecution proved all 3 of these things beyond a reasonable doubt, then you should find the defendant guilty. But if you believe the prosecution did not prove any one of these things beyond a reasonable doubt, then you must find the defendant not guilty. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean beyond all possible doubt. It means that you must consider all of the evidence and that you are very sure that the charge is true. Are you ready with final arguments?
Yes, Your Honour. Yes, Your Honour. Your Honour, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the judge has surely told you that we must prove 3 things. There is absolutely no question about the first 2 things we must prove. First, the defendant was arrested in driving a car belonging to the owner of Martinez Car Sales. Second, the owner testified that no one, including the defendant, had permission to drive or take the Corvette. Therefore, all we have to prove is that the defendant drove the car and intended it to keep away from the owner for at least a little while. The defendant admitted to wanting to drive in the Corvette because it was fast. The defendant knew the car was stolen, but says that she even thought about calling the police before driving it. But the defendant didn't even try to walk to a telephone. Instead of driving the car, she didn't even try to stop anywhere between San Ramon or Martinez to call the police. That shows that the defendant intended to keep the car for at least a little while. According to what the judge just told you, that's all we have to prove. And based on the evidence we've given you, you have to find the defendant guilty. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury and Your Honour, she was unlucky to get into a car with a man who had stolen that car. However, she got into the car because she'd never been in a Corvette before. My client's fingerprints were found on the keys because she had to touch them when the officer pulled the car over. But the prosecution's own expert told you that the other fingerprints were found on those keys and they could not be identified. I suggest to you that they belong to the real thief, Rick. Now, she's an honest person and she was only trying to return the car to its owner. If she had meant to keep the car, Why would she drive it back to Martinez? Remember that the law under my client is presumed to be innocent. The prosecution must prove every part of its case beyond a reasonable doubt. That means you must be very sure. One of the things they must prove is that my client intended to keep the car from its owner. My client is the only person who knows what she actually intended and testified under oath that she wasn't trying to keep the car from its owner. She was trying to return it. The prosecution has presented no real evidence to you to show that this is not true. That means there is a reasonable doubt, and therefore you must find her not guilty.
Will the jury for person be stand? Has the jury reached an unanimous verdict?
Yes, they have, Your Honour. The jury finds the defendant guilty.
The jury is